What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. This is Blood Phantom 81. So in this video, I'm going to take a deeper dive at some tech stocks across the market that are getting hit pretty hard as the Nasdaq is starting to pull back a little bit. Something we talked about in my most recent videos. And the other thing I want to take a look at is PayPal in particular, and sort of do a deeper dive with PayPal, understand some of their financials and their technicals, and whether I'm buying. So let's just jump right into it. So as I mentioned, the Nasdaq is pulling back a little bit, but again, this is just coming off some pretty significant overbought signals, so it's not really anything that should be too surprising. However, the one thing I do want to point out is that we would think that, this is just about large cap tech, right? Or mega cap tech. And we would think that some of the more lagging stocks, and I guess like lagging over the past few months, shouldn't really be hit that hard in particular, right? Because we think to ourselves, well, if a laggard has been getting hit already, then when the overall market pulls back a little bit, maybe you shouldn't really be hit that hard, right? Maybe there should be some kind of sector rotation that comes into play. Any other reason that might explain it, but we would think this is just with some of the larger constituents of the Nasdaq. But that actually hasn't been the case lately. Sometimes it is, but lately that has not been the case. And so all across the market, there's some stocks that have sort of been in the news lately. So this is actually Peloton stock. As you guys can see, pretty massive drawdown. So the gap down here on November 3rd, or around that area, was about $87 per share. And so now it's currently at about $48.50 per share, right? So pretty massive drop. Now Peloton is not my style, so I'm not really buying here. It's something to consider if it's this kind of company that you like. The other company I want to talk about is actually Zillow. So I own Zillow. I ended up buying more Zillow. However, it sort of doesn't even look like the selling is over with, right? Now, if we take a look from a longer term perspective, it doesn't seem too bad. It just seems like a pretty simple retrace of a area of support and a key moving average. But the way that we're responding off this area of support is not the most encouraging sign. And going back to my original point, the fact that the Nasdaq just started this pullback sort of implies that there could be more pain ahead, even though there's already been pain to begin with. And so the last company I'll take a look at is Tesla. And so Tesla came off some massively overbought signals. So this one should not be surprising whatsoever. Don't tell me anything about, what Elon Musk did. Like, this is just, I don't know. I started selling shares up here. I was like, this is ridiculously overbought. And so that's what I started to do. I still don't know exactly when I'm going to start accumulating more shares again. Could be at a previous all-time high level, maybe the low 900s around that area. But either way, I'm pretty happy with my Tesla position anyway, so not really too stressed out about this one. So the other thing I want to talk about, however, as I mentioned, is PayPal. And so of the companies that I just mentioned, maybe not including Tesla, PayPal is probably one of the strongest companies. And so I threw on some retracements here. As we can see, PayPal has nearly retraced about half of its rally since the March 2020 crash, right? And RSI is ridiculously oversold on the daily time frame. On the weekly time frame, RSI is also oversold. And so really begs the question, how should we be thinking about PayPal? Is this a buying opportunity? Is there more pain to come? And so that's exactly what we're going to take a look at. Now, first things first, I do want to address my bias. So I do own PayPal, right? So you guys know which side I'm taking. I actually just bought 50 shares, and my market value is about $10,000, which is not a small chunk of change at all. However, in case the Nasdaq does continue to pull back, I do think it'll take PayPal down with it, in which case I may have to average down more on that, and I'm prepared to do that. Now, first things first, I want to state the obvious of what PayPal actually is and how they make money. So they do have different subsidiaries. So PayPal is the parent company of Venmo, Zoom, Honey, and then PayPal itself. And so PayPal is generally a online payment transactions settlement company. They do have multiple apps and browser extensions, etc. And the way that they make money is actually through the same way that other payment processors make money, and that's through transaction volume. So the more payment volume they get, the more they get to charge a transaction fee on that volume, and the more revenue they make, basically. And the reason why vendors would want something like this is because it opens up the amount of ways that customers can actually pay. And so the more ways customers can pay, then the more revenue you're going to get as a result. And so that's basically how that works with other vendors. So let's go ahead and take a look at some pros and cons of PayPal, and also some things that investors are worried about and could be potentially excited about. So first, taking a look at annual revenue numbers, we can see that they're still growing on a yearly basis from a revenue perspective. I'm going to keep it about revenue for now, just to keep things simple. However, if we look at quarterly growth, we can actually see a decrease between September and June 2021. And so Q3 was not the most exciting quarter for PayPal shareholders. Keeping up with some of the negatives, PayPal did sever their relationship with eBay. And eBay is a massive e-commerce giant, and so that's obviously a pretty big loss of revenue, which we'll take a look at in a second, just how big of an impact this was. And then, of course, something that investors have been worried about is potentially their acquisition with Pinterest. So as of now in the payment space, there's been a lot of consolidating. So like companies are just gobbling up each other. Square is planning to buy Afterpay, and just in general, like the world, especially in this fintech space, just gets smaller and smaller with companies acquiring each other. And so there was some rumors that PayPal may acquire Pinterest, and just there's been a lot of backlash about it because investors may feel like PayPal already has enough on their plate in order to go after Pinterest. And so something else to consider that investors could be worried about. Now, taking a look at why revenue growth numbers were slowing down, we can see that between Q3 of this year and Q2 of this year, total payment volume, which is basically the amount of sales that they handle, which is in the 300s of billions of dollars, actually decreased. So decreased between Q3 and Q2. Now, this is not the end of the world, in my opinion. Obviously, it's something to really, really think deeply about. However, I think the full picture isn't that bad. If we take a look at accounts added, or I should say active accounts, those are still growing. And then these are the net new accounts. And so while the growth may be slowing down, it's definitely still there. The other thing I want to talk about too, which is a positive, is that the number of payment transactions is actually increasing. And so you might be wondering, I thought I thought payment volume was going down. Why is this going up? So this is actually just payment transactions. So this is like, if I send one transaction to you, that's one transaction. And if I send you $10, then that $10 is payment volume. And so the number of payment transactions is actually going up as well. And so that's why I think there's more to the picture than just simply looking at volume. The other thing I found super interesting is their sales growth when considering eBay or not. So when I mentioned earlier in the video, we would talk about how big of an impact this was. We can see right here side by side. And so this is their revenue excluding eBay. And so you might be wondering, okay, so if I take out the most confounding merchant and the numbers all of a sudden look good, of course I'm going to have to raise my eyebrows. And you'd be right to raise your eyebrow because that's not exactly the picture I'm trying to paint. What I personally take away from this is that their dependency on eBay revenue is actually decreasing, because this right here is total revenue, right? So here they made 5.2 billion total revenue, and here the revenue was only 2.6 billion when you take out eBay, right? And so that gap was about 2.6 billion. But now, all the way here in Q3 2021, that gap is basically non-existent, right? And so even though their relationship with eBay was severed, their sales growth channels increased so much to the point that it doesn't make that big of an impact anymore. And so that's what we like to see. We don't like to see companies so dependent on one individual merchant, and it actually gets better. The reason it gets better is because in 2022, PayPal is actually planning on launching Venmo with Amazon. And so starting in 2022, customers can actually pay with Venmo at checkout. And so this is actually a really, really big move, in my opinion. I think it's going to more than make up the hole that eBay left, and it's going to make their 2022 numbers look even better. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is some of their other vendor relationships. And so this is also really interesting because a lot of them have either just launched or are going to launch in Q4. And in my opinion, the revenue numbers are lagging just a bit. And so I would also expect another big increase in 2022 revenue numbers as a result. But let's just go ahead and take a look at a few of these. So they just partnered with Walmart for a new checkout experience. They launched Pay with Venmo in Q3 with Booking.com. And then in Q4, they're going to add Pay with Venmo with Fanatics. And then they have a relationship with GoFundMe that was launched in Q3, etc. Right, a couple more that are going to go live in Q4, and so their merchant relationships are continuing to expand, which in my opinion is going to be I mean, we can just see how important eBay was to them, right? If we scroll down right here, we can see how key eBay was, and in my opinion, just getting more merchants under their belt is going to be, basically their key to victory and success here. So yeah, lots to look forward to with PayPal. I know there's definitely some cause for concerns, right? Like total revenue, why are you decreasing? But when you actually dig into it, sort of makes sense why, and why I'm not necessarily that worried about PayPal, to be honest. And I'd happily average down if it continues to drop. So that's gonna wrap it up for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know if you're buying PayPal, if you're interested in it. Definitely drop a like. I actually really like the way this video came out. So yeah, like if you haven't already. And with that, I'll catch you guys in the next video.